This post was compiled by pillreader.com. The title is How to Become Interesting in 3 Steps, Part 1. Here is the post. While men and women are very different, one thing we have in common is that the majority of us are terrible. 90% of women are basic bitches whose lives revolve around Netflix, wine, shopping, and naps. But we often forget that 90% of men are fuckboys who have no vision beyond video games, televised sports, smoking weed, and trying to keep their dicks slick. We fault women as boring and banal but too often neglect ourselves. The knee-jerk response is that we're all unplugged individuals. We're miles ahead of Joe Beto eating Cheetos on the couch. But the unfortunate truth is that the red pill consists mainly of reformed betas, and chances are that most of us spent high school and college locked in our rooms studying or playing video games, which in terms of cultivating individual character and personality is pretty fucking terrible. Without real life experience, too often these guys express themselves through pop culture references and define themselves by the media they consume. They lack an original, self-actualized identity. Almost every day I see newly unplugged guys wondering how they can become more interesting and make conversation. Most of TRP is pretty straightforward: lift, read, approach. There's an endless amount of information on how to lift weights, along with a wealth of resources in the sidebar on RP theory and game. But what do you do if you have the chiseled body and iron frame, but nothing inside? Many guys here already have rich and fulfilling lives. This post is not for you. This is for all the newbies who hit Ask the Red Pill wondering how to make friends. Hobbies, interests, and experiences. These 3 things make up the foundation of who we are. Women might be judged solely on how they look, but men are judged on what they do. What do you do? What do you like to do? What have you already done? What do you plan on doing? Either directly or indirectly, people will ask you these questions and you must have satisfactory answers. If the answer to all these questions is Xbox and jerking off, then you're doing it wrong. Hobbies. These are activities you do regularly with tangible results. Playing video games is not a hobby. Neither is watching sports, drinking beers, or hanging out with your brothers. There is nothing inherently wrong with these activities, but in the end you haven't achieved anything substantial. We fault party girls for endlessly pursuing good times without contributing or developing anything. While lounging on the porch lacks the glamour and excitement of recreational drugs and club music, it's ultimately just as frivolous. Hobbies are more analogous to skills, rooted in pragmatism with tangible benefits. Women don't worry about this because they are all born with a vital skill: sex. It is imperative that you cultivate several hobbies and work on them regularly. That is, at least once a week, preferably more often, you dedicate time towards the pursuit of each hobby. How many people do you know that play guitar but haven't touched one in months if not years? If they even still own one. To develop a well-rounded personality, you must pursue at least one hobby from each of the 3 cardinal spheres: the physical, the creative, and the mental. The physical: these are activities that strengthen your body and increase your stamina. At least 3 times a week you should be engaging in a physical activity. The very minimum requirement is weightlifting, the quintessential lift more advice of the red pill. But often that's not enough. Every lame half-alpha out in the wild fucks around at the gym, and for top-tier guys a weightlifting regimen is all but mandatory. A true physical hobby goes beyond mere maintenance of your physique. These are activities like snowboarding, rock climbing, boxing, and cycling. Even conventional sports like basketball, if you take it seriously. Pushing your body to its limits and developing your natural agility, power, and grace. We might not be chasing down mammoths anymore, but you can still be a hunter and warrior. If it is your sole source of exercise, then 3 times a week is mandatory. If it supplements weightlifting or calisthenics, then once a week is acceptable. It's not just about strengthening your body, but adding another layer to your personality. I'm hitting the slopes over break. I just ran a marathon last weekend. Let's ball after work. You will have a hardness and appeal to you that most people lack. The creative, these are activities that result in tangible pieces of aesthetic work. Drawing, painting, music, sculpture, singing, and so on. Most people believe that artistic ability is innate, but really it's a matter of practice and commitment. Just like lifting and game, there are myriad resources available for you to improve in the media of your choice. As with the physical, creative hobbies need to be practiced at least 3 times a week. That isn't to say that multiple times a week you need to painstakingly hew Greco-Roman deities from a living marble. Just as there are light and heavy workouts, there are smaller and larger sessions. For example, I'm a painter. I dedicate a single day during the week in which I go to the studio, turn my phone off, and spend a few hours painting. The rest of the week I just work in my sketchbook, drawing, sketching, and generally brainstorming. Likewise, maybe you only go to a voice coach once a week, but the rest of the time you practice your scales at home. Not every session is monumental, but you consistently make progress. If you can commit to those 3 weekly sessions, you'll be surprised at how quickly you improve and how proficient you become. If you spend money on private lessons or take a class at the local college, you'll progress even faster, with the bonus of meeting young liberal females. You don't need to be a Renaissance artist to satisfy this hobby. Creative writing and poetry are equally excellent. Woodworking is rustic and timeless. Photography and graphic design are also viable options that are more modern and accessible, although significant effort is required to elevate yourself above the many amateurs. The mental. Another word for this sphere would be the technical or the intellectual. The physical will strengthen your body and the creative will refine your aesthetic, but you need to challenge your mind in order to complete the trinity. There are overlaps between mental hobbies and interests, which I will mention shortly, but remember that the defining aspect of a hobby is that it provides tangible benefit. While reading about history and playing chess are certainly intellectual pursuits, ultimately you don't achieve much besides knowing more about history and getting better at chess. Mental hobbies are things such as coding, mechanics, and foreign languages. They can be financial pursuits such as real estate or managing a business. On a more Machiavellian level, it can even include human psychology and manipulation. They all require intelligence, study, and practice, but are useful and applicable. You can build your own website or design a new app. Save hundreds of dollars maintaining your own vehicle. The Red Pill often recommends travel. Consider how much more autonomous you will be and how much richer your experience when you can speak multiple languages. Out of the 3 spheres, mental hobbies most directly translate into utility and profit. These categories are not set in stone. There is plenty of overlap between the spheres. Dance blends the physical and the creative. Cooking and baking blend the creative and mental. Martial arts combine the mental and physical. Even something as mundane as gardening contains elements from all 3 areas. The key is to become a well-rounded individual who can contribute in multiple ways. Interests. Interests and hobbies are often confused. While there are similarities, the main difference is that interests are pursued on their own merit. You engage in them solely because of their appeal to you. Hobbies are constrained through their practical application, but interests are far more open-ended. However, most interests have zero practicality. You need a different mindset when you pursue interests versus hobbies. The point of having diverse interests is allowing you to contribute to conversations. That's it. Yes, you can pull the sitcom routine and try to memorize various trivia on a subject so you can fake expertise, but your conversations will be far more natural, organic, and fulfilling if you have real knowledge of whatever topic you are discussing. To be an interesting person you need to discuss interesting things. To discuss interesting things you need to have knowledge on interesting things. What do you do for fun? What interests or excites you? Answering these questions is crucial to determining what you want to pursue. Nature and the outdoors. Punk rock. Floral arrangement. Archaeology. Tarot readings. Classic literature. Tropical fish. Horror movies. Modern art. Taxidermy. Deep house. American history. Board games. Tantric philosophy. Magic tricks. Rock collecting. German expressionism. Astronomy. Hog futures. Interior design. Your options are endless. This is such a simple and basic concept, but many people lack the basic desire to broaden their horizons. Ask your plates about any of these topics and watch their eyes glaze over. Take initiative and pursue your interests actively. You can't passively sit through life waiting for opportunities to explore. Just like anything else on the Red Pill, read, learn, and spend time on them. If you don't know where to begin, don't forget that any of the hobbies mentioned in the previous section are automatic interests. They naturally lend themselves to other areas of knowledge. If you're a cyclist, then you already know about cycling. You can discuss different bikes, routes, and maintenance, but it's so easy to expand from cycling into environmental impact, public transit, kinesiology, health benefits, city planning, triathlons, and mechanics. However, not all interests are created equal. Video games get a lot of shit on TRP, but video games are a legitimate interest. You can spend time and money on them, you can discuss them, and they bring enjoyment to your life. But when men on TRP talk shit about video games, it comes from a place of truth. For practical purposes, no women want to hear you talk about video games. None of them? Ever. What you do on your own time is your business. If they help you unwind, God bless. But understand that certain things have a negative connotation that you may want to distance yourself from. If your primary goal is sexual strategy, it is imperative you keep that in mind. Regardless of how lame or sexual your interests are, they should all contribute to your overall frame of reference. Think of water cooler talk. Even if video games aren't attractive, you can still connect with people who play them. The key here is to not separate and categorize hobbies and interests, but to pursue them in concert and combine them in interesting ways. For example, if your physical hobby is rock climbing and one of your interests is nature and the outdoors, then every month you go camping with all your gear and climb during the day while sleeping under the stars at night. Doing that is much more interesting than simply going to an indoor climbing gym and walking through the woods behind your house. You create something greater than the sum of its individual parts. These kinds of combinations lead into the third aspect of personality. Experiences. It's very easy to fall into a routine of work, gym, eat, sleep, repeat. You sustain yourself, even stay healthy, but are you really living? Even if you pursue all the hobbies and interests mentioned earlier, you could still spend your entire life in a 10-mile bubble. You need to go out and experience life. 9 times out of 10, if a newbie isn't making any progress, it's because he's spending too much time reading and not enough time doing. Climb a mountain. Tag a water tower. Trip on acid in the desert under a full moon. Party in Ibiza. Get in a fight. Sneak backstage at a concert. Go skydiving. Date a sugar mama. Volunteer at the shelter. Backpack across Asia. Wrestle a large animal. Go to gay pride. Learn to backflip. Spend a night on the streets. Take 2 dates to the same party. Run with the bulls. Hike the Pacific Crest Trail. Go streaking. Note that some of these activities are horrendously stupid. But that's the great thing about experiences, they are experience. And even the bad ones make you a stronger, more interesting person. Internalize the good. Learn from the bad. This is part of the reason why girls love bikers, criminals, gangsters, and dealers. They're doing stuff. They're exciting. They're dangerous. I can hear the girls getting wet from here. Even if in the grand scheme of things these guys are in a shitty position, girls would rather have fun in the dirt than stay clean and bored on the couch. Girls would rather share an alpha than own a beta. Again, this is all obvious shit. But if you never venture out of your comfort zone, you will never grow and develop as a human being. However, it's not about running around like a headless chicken trying to do as much wacky shit as possible. Yes, in the grand scheme you can travel all around the world collecting notches and accolades, but in the mundane, day-to-day aspect you also need to maintain an active social life. One of the more common questions I see from new subscribers is how to meet girls once they graduate college. These guys have trouble because they don't make an effort. You can be the most interesting man in the world, but you still need to put yourself out there. Many men enter accidental monk mode. I've been guilty of it myself. You read the literature, you hit the gym, get your career on track, and focus on your hobbies. But since a social life isn't spoon-fed to you like it was in high school or college, you never go out unless someone drags you. Sometimes it's because your social network is in shambles, sometimes it's because porn and video games are convenient and available. Before you know it, a month goes by and you're in a dry spell. If you want a social life, you have to work for it. Guys complain about never meeting girls, but if they were going to house parties, concerts, doing co-ed athletics, hitting the bars, perfecting their online game, and just generally expanding their social circle, you'd hear a lot less complaining. But that's hard. It's a lot easier to make excuses. One of the core tenets of TRP is that you as a man are not entitled to anything. That includes having a good time. The next post will discuss developing a sense of humor, becoming more charismatic, and being mindful of the company you keep. This post was compiled by PillReader.com. The title is, How to Become Interesting in 3 Steps, Part 2. Here is the post. Yesterday, the user Femi Fatal made an excellent point. You can attract women even if you're the most boring shit out there just by having a teasing, self-amused and a cocky personality. Part 2 focuses directly on how to become funny, confident, and self-amused. So if your primary goal is to fuck women, then focus on this post and ignore Part 1. This is not a guide on how to fuck women. This is guide on self-improvement. Although throughout this guide I relate the information to picking up women, the main focus is on self-improvement while sexual strategy is secondary. Yes, improving yourself will make you more appealing to women, but if that's your only goal, then Part 1 is needlessly complicated and difficult. If you're not following this guide for your own sake, you will fail. The last post discussed hobbies, interests, and experiences. Together they comprise the core of who you are. But with all products, you need to market it and sell it. And make no mistake, when it comes to women, you are definitely a product. It's called the sexual marketplace for a reason. Undoubtedly you've heard don't judge a book by its cover, but why would you slap an ugly cover on an amazing book? The truth is that people are constantly judging you superficially. It's not enough to simply have a fit body. You need to dress well and groom yourself. Likewise, it's not enough to simply have an interesting personality. You need humor, charisma, and eloquence. 1. Be funny. Being funny might seem like the simplest thing in this post to accomplish, but developing your wit is more daunting than you might think. You can memorize common shit tests and their responses, but true game is an integral part of you. Likewise, even if you have canned jokes at the ready, your wit needs to be organic in order to respond to the chaotic and dynamic nature of conversations. Being funny isn't easy. We would hardly compare comedians to doctors and lawyers, but truthfully it takes real intelligence and insight to be funny. You need to have excellent observational skills, analytical abilities, and quickness of thought. You need social acumen to recognize your context and audience and determine the best way to deliver your humor, along with the right vocabulary to convey your meaning both simply and unambiguously. Furthermore, You need to be funny in a way that appeals to women. It's easy to be a clown, pandering to her for the sake of her amusement. Not only is this disrespectful of yourself, women will instinctually recognize your supplication and be disgusted. Women don't fuck clowns. Operate with the intention of amusing yourself, never her. The impact of your humor is always lessened when it's delivered for the sole benefit of those around you. Luckily, humor, like game, can be developed through practice, observation, and education. To improve our game, we read what more experienced men have written on the subject. To improve our wit, we observe our comedic betters. This is primarily done through watching stand-up and television. It seems antithetical to the RP notions of constant improvement, but watching comedy is a great way to be entertained as you improve yourself. The key to doing so is active observation. You can't passively sit back and let the media wash over you. You need to engage the material with a critical mind to educate yourself. On a basic level you will be exposed to what is funny, but more specifically you observe the nuances of body language, delivery, and comedic timing. This is the most important aspect. Delivery is everything. It is the difference between crushing a shit test and getting a drink thrown in your face. Even the smartest, most clever jokes will fall flat if the delivery is poor. These are my own specific recommendations. I'm sure other members will have more thoughtful and effective suggestions. Look at popular comedians like Louis C.K., John Mulaney, Kyle Kinane, and Hannibal Buress, in addition to podcasts and specials from more familiar RP comics like Bill Burr, Joe Rogan, Brian Callen, and Patrice O'Neal. Some smartly written TV shows include Community, 30 Rock, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and Archer. Watch sharp movies like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, In Bruges, Juno, The Cornetto Trilogy, and anything by Mel Brooks. The point isn't to watch what's reddest and most alpha. You're watching to become a funnier person, although always be cognizant of the underlying message any media is conveying. Furthermore, don't try to play a character. I could not emphasize this more. You want to develop your own sense of humor, not emulate someone else's performance in a stilted, affected, and ultimately shittier way. When you're out with a group of people, pay attention to the flow of conversation. Who is making the jokes? What is the subject matter? How are people responding? Here's a real-life example. In yesterday's post I mentioned trying heroin. I considered this to be a blatantly ridiculous suggestion for the purposes of creating humor, just like I wouldn't actually recommend talking to girls about taxidermy. But the response from the sub was overwhelmingly negative, and could have easily overtaken the entire post. In the future, if any of you are attempting to be light-hearted on the red pill, you now know that references to hard drugs will not be well received. The same logic applies to any other group. Girls at the bar probably won't respond to obscure references. Sexual humor probably won't fly at work. Observing other people's conversations will give you a more coherent understanding of the organic nature of real-life comedy, versus prepared stand-up and edited television. The humor might be dry and clever or deadpan and sarcastic. It could be lame puns. It could be interpersonal in the form of good-natured ribbing and giving each other shit. If that ribbing becomes aggressive and antagonistic, pay attention to how people attack each other. Be aware of how comedians respond to hecklers and take note, especially when others emoji you. Being funny means that in the moment you are the center of attention, which lends itself to criticism and jealousy from others. Eventually you will begin recognizing natural setups where you can interject with your own words. Unlike television, you don't have the luxury of 37 different takes, so it is crucial that you commit to whatever it is you say. No whispered mumbles, speak clearly with confidence and self-assurance. And if your joke falls flat, at least you go down in style. Your sense of humor and your game frame are indelibly linked. As you become funnier, your game becomes tighter and your frame becomes rock solid. Agreeing/amplifying and amused mastery both directly rely on your sense of humor and ability to be funny. Your intelligence and wit are vital to a properly executed pressure flip. And when needed, your observational skills and insight will allow you to deliver exquisitely brutal nuclear shutdowns. 2. Charisma. In contrast to being humorous, becoming charismatic is much more straightforward. Improving yourself will improve your SMV, and a subsequent increase in charisma is a natural consequence. A big part of this is due to the halo effect. Good physical shape, hygiene, personal style will all make you more appealing, and that physical appeal will cause others to view everything about you in a better light. A fat slob and a fit stud could both deliver the same exact line in the same scenario with the same delivery, but one is creep and the other is charming. Humans are a visual species, and you must appeal to our superficiality to be successful. Apart from physical appearance, the key component of charisma is confidence. The easiest way to demonstrate confidence is to actually be confident. This is why working out and having hobbies are so critical. You could disregard the last post entirely and still be successful with women, but it will be so much easier if you are authentic. Nonetheless, if there is one area where fake it till you make it works, it is confidence. There are many physical aspects to confidence. When you speak, do so clearly and directly. Practice vocal exercises to deepen and strengthen your voice. Make direct eye contact when speaking to others. Develop good posture when walking, back straight, shoulders back, head high, leading with your dick. Controlled stride. When you enter the room you want people to notice. When sitting, especially with girls, be relaxed and expansive. Spread out, get comfortable, and bring others into your space. Don't alter yourself to accommodate theirs. Emulate the relaxed power and deadly elegance of a lion. This is just another of the many reasons why physical exercise is so important, that natural, animal grace can't be faked. Your body language reveals much about you, never allow it to be nervous or hesitant. Don't twitch or fidget. Dance studios have floor-length mirrors for a reason. The best way to practice your posture and body language is by looking in the mirror. Confidence, and therefore charisma, is all about nuance and balance. Be passionate without being emotional. Be assertive in conversations. Never needlessly antagonize others, but always stand your ground. Show intelligence without condescension, and be playful without being childish. Tailor yourself to the situation. While the party is in full swing, be boisterous and exciting. When tensions are high, exude quiet ferocity and command the room. In the intimate moments before dawn, be smooth, seductive, and dominant. When dealing with eligible women, at all times maintain an undercurrent of sexual energy. Another important aspect is cultivating an aura of mystery. Don't be so quick to divulge information about yourself. Scarcity implies value. When you reveal aspects of yourself slowly and deliberately, those around you will be both intrigued and attentive. But as I mentioned earlier, don't try to play a character. Don't try to be Don Draper, Frank Underwood, James Bond, or Walter White. All confident, charismatic men will share certain qualities, but you need to apply those qualities to your own unique persona rather than a fictional character. Most importantly, don't take yourself too seriously. It's just as bad as constant self-deprecation. Don't forget to be fun. No one likes a try-hard or buzzkill. 3. Conversation. When it comes to good conversation, the simple approach works best. Practice makes perfect. You need to constantly approach and have conversations with other people. People in line, in class, on the street, on the subway, and in the store. Talk to anyone that seems open, not just attractive women. The majority of these people won't be interested and will give you a curt response, but others will be very amicable and you can practice your conversational skills. Keep it light to start. It's called small talk for a reason. If they seem bored, learn how to disengage smoothly. If they seem attentive, start branching out into other topics. The whole process is similar to cold approaching, but without the pressure of sexual expectation. Nothing will help you build outcome independence like approaching a dozen different strangers every day. You have conversations for your own benefit, and never feel obligated to remain in one if you're no longer enjoying yourself. When I was a freshman in college, I was deathly shy. I could have deep conversations with my friends, but I was terrified to approach new people and I would struggle to form a basic connection. If I found myself alone at a party, I would retreat to the corner and stay out of sight. I got over this by literally forcing myself to talk to as many people as possible whenever I went out. At first I could only do it after drinking, with my inhibitions lowered but my mind slowed. Eventually, I was able to approach sober. The more I did it, the easier it became and the better I got. By the time I graduated, I could walk into a house full of strangers and leave as everyone's new best friend. The more you talk to people, the more you can get them to open up and engage with you. Recognize the difference between awkward pauses and the natural ebb and flow of conversation. Learn how to minimize the awkward pauses while comfortably enjoying the organic silences. This is also great for diffusing tense situations. The mark of a great conversation is that it flows. It's effortless. You find a genuine connection with another person and the words flow naturally. With practice, you no longer have to rely on meeting the right person that you just vibe with. You can forge a connection with anyone who is relatively friendly and intelligent. Humor and charisma are vital because they make other people more comfortable around you. It's so much easier to talk to people when they want to talk to you. The last post mentioned experiences, but what good are they if you can't share them? Great storytellers are those who can share insightful observations in a humorous and appealing way. Use concise but descriptive language, and always keep things relatable to your audience. The third and final post in this series will discuss in depth on how to make new friends, expand your social circle, and surround yourself with quality people who add value to your life. This post was compiled by PillReader.com. The title is How to Become Interesting in 3 Steps, Part 3. Here is the post. In Part 1, I discussed having various hobbies, skills, interests, and experiences. In Part 2, I covered developing a sense of humor and becoming funnier, building your charisma and confidence, and the basics of conversation. I know many of you wanted information on how to make friends and expand your social circle. Don't worry, I'm getting to it, but it will likely be the very last post in the series. I'm presenting these posts in a certain order for maximum efficacy, and the brutally honest rationale for presenting that information last is this: if you sincerely need a guide found on an anonymous internet message board on how to make friends, I really think it's for the best that you read through all the basic material before you start putting yourself out there. Part 3 will discuss making the time to actually do all the things I mentioned in Part 1 and Part 2. Let's get to it, boys. Time management. This is a very important issue that was not addressed very well in Part 1. Here is the unfortunate truth: it is very likely you will not have enough time to pursue everything fully. You might be a student or self-employed with free time coming out your ass, in which case pursuing your goals is simply a matter of motivation, but chances are you work long hours at work or you have a terrible commute. You might have a wife and children, or even just a serious LTR, who take up much of your time. In these cases, you do what you can with the time you have. It's well known that parenthood comes at the cost of your personal life. That's just the sacrifice you make. For the workaholics, the idea is that you are trading personal fulfillment now for financial security later. There is nothing wrong with either. For the rest of you, achieving all of your goals comes down to a few basic concepts: having a set schedule, using your time productively, and being flexible when needed. Schedule. Any aspect of self-improvement is fundamentally a permanent lifestyle change. Whether it's starting a diet, swallowing the red pill, or buckling down at work, any permanent improvement requires you to directly alter your life. Temporary work always leads to a temporary solution. We are creatures of habit. If you want to stick to a new lifestyle, you need a routine. Could you imagine if your work schedule was totally random? Imagine getting a call every morning from your boss telling you the specific hours you would work that day. Maybe you have a 16-hour shift, maybe you have the day off. Maybe you have to work all the even hours but you get the odd hours off. How productive would you be? How much work would you get done compared to a normal 9-5? Would you be happy? Too much chaos is just as bad as unyielding order. I know there are some super alphas out there who are above the mortal constraints of this earthly plane, but personally I'm exponentially more productive on a stable schedule. You need to apply that same mentality to any non-recreational endeavor. Productive use of time. Being productive means avoiding procrastination. This is why a schedule is so important. I'm sure all of you have pulled an all-nighter at some point. But being honest, how much of that time was spent working? Most likely a good chunk of time, if not more than half, was spent wasting time. Productive use of time means that when you work, you are focused totally on work. When you have fun, you are totally focused on fun. Too often we get stuck in the procrastination zone where we do bullshit activities we half-heartedly justify to ourselves, like browsing Reddit. It's educational, right? Or jerking off. Hey man, I gotta blow off steam. We're not getting any work done, but also not really enjoying ourselves due to the looming deadline. One of my methods for beating procrastination is setting timers. Work for an hour, then goof off for an hour. If you take it seriously, work time is more productive and my leisure time is less guilty, and all-nighters now have me in bed by 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. at the latest rather than walking into class or work looking like a zombie. Another method is delayed gratification. This is why in my schedule I put leisure time at the very end of the day. If I scheduled it for right after work, chances are I would lose motivation and get complacent, and be less likely to then hit the gym or start drawing. Most people are lazy like that. Think of how many pre-games that fall apart due to guys fucking around. I don't have the discipline to get back to work after a long break, but I do have the discipline to just power through all my responsibilities for the day in one stretch. Decide what methods and mentalities work for you. Miscellaneous, leisure, and open time. Miscellaneous refers to random household activities, laundry, paying bills, answering emails, etc. All the random chores that need to get done, but since they're not pressing they tend to get overlooked. Until you remember at the last second and panic. Have a to-do list on your phone and constantly add tasks as they come up, then tackle them during a set, dedicated period of time. You'd be surprised at how quickly most of them get done. Leisure time is when you pursue any of your interests, as referenced in part 1. It can be spent however you see fit. Leisure time is when you visit your plates, tune your car, or listen to that podcast. Unwind with a video game. Watch that movie your friend recommended. Read a book, anything from red pill literature to an autobiography to science fiction. Maybe you want to spend more time on your hobbies and get more work done. Maybe you want some extra sleep. Even when it comes to your serious time, you can still decompress. At the gym, for example, you can listen to audiobooks or podcasts, if they don't distract you, or even just browse Reddit between sets. Your language practice for that day could be watching a foreign film or reading a foreign comic book. Maybe it's as simple as watching some TV while you eat. The only constraints are those you place on yourself. For myself, my leisure time this week has been spread across all kinds of things. I've been playing some Borderlands 2 on my Xbox. I watched The Babadook on Netflix. One of my interests is zoology, so I read about recently extinct animals like the Barbary lion, quagga, and Hast seagull. I took apart and cleaned my computer, and I recently received a 3D printing pen which I fooled around with. And of course, I spent time writing these posts. The video games were frivolous, but relaxing. The dead animals were obscure, but educational. 3D pens are overrated. Making these posts took more time than I care to admit, but honed my writing skills. As I said in part 1, your interests don't hinge on practicality. You pursue them because they bring enjoyment to your life, but that doesn't mean that they can't be productive as well. Open time is just that, time you leave open to do whatever you please. If my schedule sounds like too much work, then here is more time to relax and goof off. If it seemed too light and easy, then go show the world who's boss. If you want to throw a house party, pick up an extra shift, hit up a concert, or check out a museum, open time is the time to do it. Practice your approaches, take a hike, try out that new restaurant, or maybe just nurse your hangover from the night before. Shit, chuck eggs at your ex's house, if it gets you out and about. You can even just use it for more leisure time, although I don't recommend it. The best use of open time is having experiences and maintaining a social life, again referencing part 1. Flexibility. Honestly, this post was supposed to be up yesterday morning, but I just couldn't finish in time. I mentioned at the beginning of this post that not everyone will have the time to achieve all of their goals. You won't always be able to pull things off. While that was primarily directed at the fathers and work-oriented, every man will at some point have too much on his plate. Most of the time we will have too much on our plate. We only have 24 hours in the day, and it's on you to decide how to fill them. It is imperative that you know how to be flexible with your schedule. I know this is counterintuitive to the importance I placed on routine, but you need to understand that sometimes events are outside of your control or something more important comes up. It's naive to think you're always going to clock out at 5 p.m. on the dot. If you have to stay at work late, it's going to mess with your schedule, and that's fine. We are men. Which means we have responsibilities we have to uphold, but it also means we can handle whatever is thrown to us. But circle jerking aside, you need to make peace with the fact that you won't be reading your paranormal teen romance novels that night. You have to sacrifice your leisure time, or some sleep. Likewise, maybe later that week you head to the gym after work and find the place inexplicably empty, allowing you to get your workout done in half the time. Now you have extra time to play guitar or work on your screenplay. Don't forget to focus on your health, both physical and mental. If you're working manual labor, it's not the end of the world if you're not also lifting 6 days a week. If you're studying for your MCAT, you can put down the French studies for a few weeks. There are countless occurrences and circumstances that will either drain your time or bless you with more. You need to roll with the temporal punches. The other aspect is planning events and outings. You might be constrained by work and school, but don't take it too far. No one likes the loser who turns down a night out on the town because they just really need to finish sending out these emails. If your favorite band is playing on a Thursday night, then you're just going to have to reschedule that hot date with Code Academy. If you're going on a carnival cruise for the weekend, then you leave the pottery clay at home. You might take a few days off so you can go camping in Yellowstone. You lose income, skip your workouts, and blow off your studies. But the idea is that skipping all of those things is worth the enrichment and value that experience adds to your life. Say you go out and practice cold approaches at the park. You give yourself an hour to practice, with a goal of getting 10 phone numbers. But the first girl you go up to is sweet, receptive, and wants to get coffee right then. Are you going to turn down a girl to practice getting girls? That's ridiculous. You're out practicing approaches so you can get girls. You shouldn't turn down an opportunity just because it doesn't arbitrarily fit your schedule. The point of improving yourself is to have a better, fuller life. Don't let self-improvement interfere with actually living. You need to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Of course, all things in moderation. If you have a big midterm tomorrow, that bar crawl can wait. Use your basic common sense. As humans we make value judgments all the time. You need to decide what is and isn't worth doing. My point is that the journey of self-improvement is not a prison sentence. It's hard work and at times bittersweet, but ultimately it's meant to be fulfilling and enjoyable. This post was compiled by TheRedPill.com. The title is How to Become Interesting in 3 Steps, Final. Here is the post. In this final section, I cover how to build and manage a social circle. Building a social circle. Friends and money are very similar. It's much easier to make more when you already have some. The rich get richer. However, even if you have 0 friends at this moment, building a social circle from scratch isn't as daunting as it seems. Luckily, when you are active in a variety of areas, you are exposed to a huge variety of people. Guys at work, in class, and the gym. Join a co-ed sports league. Go to meetup.com, not a Reddit meetup, and see what's happening in your city. I've had great conversations just with random dudes at the bar or in line at a concert. I mentioned having lots of random conversations in part 2. You should be having them with other men as well. This is why part 1 and part 2 came first. When you are interesting, substantial, funny, and charming, talking with people and befriending them becomes infinitely easier. You will find that conversations with men are much smoother and more interesting than those with women. Part of this is due to the lack of sexual expectation, but also because men are just generally more interesting and affable than women. What many guys seem to forget is that your game can be applied to men as well as women. Just like you would approach a girl, make conversation, then escalate or ask for her number, you do the same with men. Not saying you should hit them with kino. But just as you attempt to convey favorable sexual qualities to women, you want to convey favorable friendship qualities to men. The key difference is that you actually want to convey some BP traits to men you want to befriend. Making male friends is the only area in life where a blue pill approach can be effective. This is for the same reason that built dudes get approached more often by other men than by women. Men appreciate hard work, generosity, and genuine displays. Because you're not trying to have a sexual relationship, you can forego many of the games you have to play with women. How often do other men shit test you? There might be some initial back and forth as they determine the social hierarchy, but generally men won't be constantly riding and testing you. Obviously you're still an unplugged RP man. Don't regress or compromise yourself. But if you're trying to build a whole new social circle from scratch, you need to swallow your pride and ego. If you are too dominant, men will see you as either a threat to themselves, or a threat to their potential or actual sexual options. Don't just chiz into the wind and see what sticks. Be discerning with who you decide to befriend. 5 minutes of loud yelling in the club does not give you any indication of who this person is. But when you meet a guy and feel a sense of connection and camaraderie, it is up to you to initiate the relationship and move things forward. Generally, people want to have fun. If things are going well, then grab his number and hit him up the next time you're planning an outing. Crack wise, make some jokes, and make plans next weekend to go out. Rather than immediately inviting him to go male bonding in the woods, you start off with fun and light activities, then move towards more substantial outings. Granted, just like women, not every guy is going to be interested or available, but most likely he'll say yes and join your plans, or even invite you to join his. After a time a casual friendship will form. Once you've established him as a casual friend, you can begin to form a deeper friendship with them. You want to set up activities and events outside the normal party scene spectrum. Grab some brunch on Sunday and scope out some girls. See if they want to catch a movie or live music. Once you have several of these casual friends, you can set up group activities. Invite them on a camping trip or outdoor excursion. Have a barbecue and watch the game. Take high tea slow. Remember that most likely this guy didn't know you a month ago. You want to hang out in this way maybe once every week or 2. This is why it is important to cultivate multiple casual friends at once. Have an abundance mentality so you don't go full psycho when these guys flake or cancel. Be aware of the directionality of the friendship. He should also be initiating conversation and invitations. If you are the only one making an effort, take a step back and reassess. After the relationship has progressed, you can use that friendship to break into other social circles. He might invite you to a friend's house party, or maybe ask if you want to tag along with him to a concert. You cannot be picky. It doesn't matter if the house is 20 miles away or you can't stand hip-hop, you shut your mouth and go. From there, you get introduced to his friends. Developing a relationship with these new people will be much easier. Because you have a mutual friend who can vouch for you, there's already a level of mutual trust. Building a rapport is much easier when the initial awkwardness of meeting new people is diminished. Get their numbers, add them on Instagram. I know TRP doesn't endorse social media, but when people are acclimated to your online presence they are more open to your real one. Then repeat the process again. In time, if you meet a kindred spirit you really connect with, that friendship will naturally progress and grow further. True friendship. True friends are the guys who will roll out of bed at 2 a.m. with no questions asked. These are the guys with too much pride to borrow money, but pay it all back and buy you dinner as thanks. These are the guys who will fight for you. These are the guys you can roll around with hungover and shamelessly order breakfast from Del Taco as you talk about nothing. There are no lies or secrets, because there are no judgments. Kids these days keep talking about their ride or dies without the smallest reflection on what that actually entails. When things are bleak and there is no hope, a true friend will get in the front seat and ride it out or die trying. These friendships are forged in the crucible of blood, fire, and sulfur. Heartaches and triumphs. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. If there is ever true love to be found in a man's life, it is from a real, true blue friend. At any point in any man's life, they are exceedingly blessed if they have even one true friend on which to lean on and support in return. Realistically, you will not have more than 3 or 4 at any one time. I don't believe it's possible to have any more than that without neglecting at least one of them. You may still maintain close friendships, but that threshold of mutual communication and support only allows for so many at one time. I wish I could offer some advice on how to form a true friendship, but I can tell you how to recognize one. In my experience, they only happen organically through random occurrence. You will meet a guy and things just click. Call it chemistry, compatible souls, or whatever you like. Within a month or so, you'll feel a closeness building that will slowly keep growing. At that point, guides become useless, as the friendship will naturally form as long as it is not directly sabotaged. Choosing your friends wisely. They say that you are a combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I don't doubt it. This is why TRP advises forming friendships with high-value men. Don't be like a woman and reduce every relationship into a transaction, but be cognizant of how your friends actually contribute to your life, especially those you see regularly. They might deeply enrich you, but most likely they are totally ambivalent. They might even be actively working against you. Take a deep, hard look at all of the people you consider friends. Apply the same introspection you use when browsing TRP. You might find you don't like what you see. Furthermore, don't discard the guidance and wisdom of older men and mentors. If they've accomplished any modicum of achievement, they will have sage and useful advice. The general trend on TRP is that men are more honorable and loyal than women. Perhaps. But there are plenty of male liars, cheat, leeches, and psychopaths who will not hesitate to bring you down. Either indirectly through their general scarcity of character, or directly when an opportunity to benefit themselves arises. To reduce collateral damage, always keep them a safe distance away from your sanity and your valuables. Beaters and SJW men are a more insidious threat. The true danger of associating with them is not in them harming you, but in dragging you down through their negativity and complacence. These are the guys who decline when you invite them to the gym. These are the guys who whine, complain, and cockblock whenever you go out. And while in general they will be friendly and supportive, all of that flies out the window once they catch a whiff of pussy. The closer they become to actualizing their sexual goals, the further they will distance themselves from you. There are dozens of stories on the Red Pill, and ask the Red Pill about a beta throwing up under the bus to get closer to a woman. You will find that the vast majority of the friends you have are champagne friends. They show up when the bottles are uncorked, but are conspicuously absent when they stop flowing. They're always down to hang out when times are good, yet slip away when things get rough. Or even just when the required effort on their part is too much. Many people will party at your house, but very few will help you clean up in the morning. Be very wary of these people. Every man has real friends, but your champagne friends have judged you as fundamentally unworthy in some way. It could be something as minor as finding your laugh annoying, or as major as not even really liking or respecting you. However, they're convenient to have when planning a good time. Let them serve their purpose and use them thoroughly in return, but guard your heart and mind against them. Rock has an excellent article on the harem, the tribe, and the pride. It will help you compartmentalize your friendships in the most personally advantageous way. Befriending women. It is impossible to befriend a woman that you are attracted to. Either you fuck and it becomes a sexual relationship, or you don't, and you're an orbiter. When I see men on TRP discussing their platonic female friends, it's always one of two scenarios: she's a nitus he won't admit to, or she's a former lover he alpha widowed. Even if you don't find her attractive, and you almost certainly do, you can still find yourself orbiting. Go back to the section on true friendship. As it is, you will very rarely have that relationship with men. To expect that same level of commitment and loyalty from a woman is willfully ignorant. Walt. You can't get that level of love from a woman you're actually fucking. To get it from a platonic female friend is impossible. Even if she spit in the face of her biology and was that devoted to you, her inferior capabilities ensure that you're still getting a raw deal. Too much of her value is comprised of the sex she offers. This is the inherent problem with befriending women. They never give as much as they take. I'm not saying you never have non-sexual relationships with women. But understand that the women in your life are not your friends, they are acquaintances. They're the champagne friends. I defy you to ask any one of them to come see you tonight because you're going through some things and could really use a friend. I guarantee all of them will give you some weak excuse about how they're not really feeling well, but you should totes catch up soon. Double points if they post selfies in their club dresses to social media later. Or they might hit you with the exceedingly vague and ever popular dinner plans. Most likely they just won't respond at all. The only women in your life who might actually show up are blood relatives, and even that's a crapshoot. I had exactly 3 close female friends before TRP. I would have considered them real friends too. They paid their own way, and sometimes mine, valued and respected me, and helped me when needed. But since subscribing to TRP, all 3 friendships imploded. Once you swallow the pill, your worldview is irrevocably changed. You can never unring that bell. Of the 3 girls, I fucked one, acknowledging my attraction, and therefore an itis. I dropped one, acknowledging she was a champagne friend and I was orbiting. One dropped me, acknowledging she was using me and left when I asserted myself. RP conversion. There's not much to say here. All men, upon initially swallowing the red pill, wish to proselytize to their brethren and spread the good word. This is widely regarded as a bad idea. As men we wish to help our brothers, but the vast majority of men are either too plugged in, too complacent, or too fearful to take your advice. The best case scenario is that they ignore your words entirely. Most likely they will argue and get angry, but will still maintain the friendship. The worst case scenario, especially for the bluest of beaters, is that they will attempt to expose you to the world as the woman hater you are. While they will fail in their ultimate goal of knighting their way into some pussy, they can very easily shake the foundations of the social circle you have worked so hard to build. The only other person I have converted to Red Pill is my best friend. He was my college roommate for 3 years and saw my transformation firsthand, along with directly experiencing all of my disasters and misadventures with women in the interim. Even then, it still took his heart getting broken before he would accept TRP. I never imagined these posts would take off in the way they did. This sub has improved my life so drastically and I wanted to contribute in return. I want to thank each and every one of you for reading, and I appreciate all the thanks, suggestions, questions, and death threats you have sent me. I sincerely hope these posts have benefited you in some way, and as always, thanks for reading.